Welcome everybody, this is the general Microsoft 365 development special interest group, and this is the bi-weekly sync. It is April 16th, 2020, and this is the bi-weekly call where we talk about, well, a lot of different stuff. Today is a good example. We will talk about your teams, we talk about SharePoint, we talk about Graph APIs or potential future of Graph APIs and REST APIs as well. So this is kind of the mixture of a lot of things, and about list and list experiences. Today, the list and list experiences will not be actually presented by Chris Kent. He's super sad about that one, but obviously he will be there in the future as well, because Niket Jain, who's actually responsible of our list experiences in Microsoft from the Microsoft product group, is showing up some cool stuff which is coming live as well. And I'm pretty sure that then Chris will come up with a even more, let's say, polished samples with horses and everything else. If you don't know what that horse reference was, check out some of our older recordings. It makes more sense if you've seen that live. Now, let's actually get going, because we have 3 demos today, and we want to make sure that everybody has at least 15 minutes. I have a hard stop on the hour, so we'll move into going to latest on PnP Sites Core, PnP PowerShell, Modernization Tooling, and your teams pretty fast. I'm going to quickly recap some of our generic slides. We do apologize that we keep on these in every single call, but it's actually surprisingly important. There's always new people in the call. So even though you've seen this, it doesn't mean that everybody else have seen that. So we are more than happy to have you as a community members to do demos in this call. So please, if you're interested in gaining any visibility, you have a cool sample, solution, technical pattern, implementation, which doesn't have to be necessarily open source, contact us and we'll set you a 10 to 15 minutes or 15 minutes demo or even more in the upcoming calls. It might not be the immediate next call, but we'll get you on the agenda and we'll get you the invites for that call as well. Contribute in GitHub. We have a lot of stuff happening in a GitHub, and we're trying to improve that all the time. And we have a lot of changes coming up on there in the future as well. And then the most important thing, provide feedback. All of the features you see today, as an example, taxonomy, API stuff, and all of that. Please provide feedback. If there's something which is missing, something you don't like, let us know so we're able to address your input around these things. That's super important. Your input defines what are we building, because you are Microsoft customer and we don't want to build something which you wouldn't be using. So please let us know what you think about what we're building. Now, quick recap on the assets. I'm not going to even go through all of these, but we have a lot of URLs. We have a lot of stuff available, and the URLs you can find them always on the video notes and on the summary blog post as well. But we have videos, and the recordings will be always pushed on the video channel, like this one within 24 hours. Open source stuff, SharePoint framework documentation, which is our primary dev model. Other SharePoint framework samples are available, and the issues as well. And moving on the following things. Now, if you don't feel familiar of contributing in the GitHub and you're not familiar with, hey, how would I actually submit a change in the documentation, check out AKMS Sharing is Caring initiative run by David Warner and Hugo Bernier, which will help you to get started. And there's a different set of, let's say, training sessions which the guys are setting up. And then from those training sessions, you'll learn how to take advantage in the GitHub in the future, how to contribute samples, how to edit the documents, how to contribute articles maybe in the future as well. So go there, have a look on things and when there is the next training session from David. Now, quick reminder also from last time as well, Parker's Place is now open. So this is not directly run by Microsoft, but obviously Parker design was coming from Microsoft to the store. Parker Place is something which is addressing the classic ask. Everybody keeps on having that request of, hey, I would like to have Parker t-shirt. I would like to have Parker mugs. And the answer is go to the Parker's Place, and you can actually order them. And there's different kind of designs. We're looking into potentially have a community designs here as well. And what's cool about this one is that all profits go to charity, because sharing is caring. So it is not there to make money. All of the profits will be directly going to the charity. I think it's thecode.org, so helping kids to get started on computers, even though they wouldn't have money actually buy computers and coding and all of that stuff. So trying to make the world a better place with the things you might be investing on these designs. Now, quick updates on the PMP CSOM Core Library. I think Bert is actually on family vacation, well-deserved one. So Paolo, I think you're on the call ready to do a quick intro on this one.
Yes, here I am, Vesa, thank you. And yes, with the April 2020 release of PnP CSOM Core Library, we introduced some new capabilities, like, for example, the capability to create the app catalog for your tenant using the ensure app catalog async method, which will do that for you and which will let us do an easy setup of solution where we need to create on the fly the app catalog in a target tenant. Moreover, we introduced the capability to do the creation and the provisioning of modern team sites with app-only access token, which will be really useful whenever you want to create an Azure function in which you want to use app-only and certificate-based authentication, plus some other fixes and small improvements. Moreover, we are working on introducing support for .NET Standard using the CSOM for .NET Standard in SPO, as well as we are still working on a new library which will come out in the near future, which will be available in .NET Standard and which will allow us to work with a graph-first approach consuming Microsoft 365. The usage of the PnP CSOM Core Library is growing like crazy. This last month, we had almost 33,000 tenants using the library and over 10 billion requests in a month. So if you are not using it, just do it because it's really beneficial for your solution.
Now it might be that people are already in .NET Core and they're waiting for the .NET Standard version of the CSOM Core, which is understandable, and that's delayed because we're waiting for the official CSOM version, and then after that the PMP CSOM Core Standard version can come out as well. Anyway, that's a quick update on that one. It is coming. Thank you, Paolo, for that one. I think Irvin is on a call to do a quick recap on the PMP PowerShell, unless I'm completely mistaken.
No, you're not mistaken. I'm here.
Awesome. Excellent.
Yeah, so all the benefits of Sites Core automatically trickle down to PnP PowerShell. We have a couple of new commandlets related to the knowledge hub sites. They are effectively the same as you find in the Office 365 management shell, but then these are using the connect PnP online commandlets, etc. So you don't have to leave the PnP commandlets if you want to use them. We have also an equivalent now for what Paolo just mentioned to register an app catalog. You can call the register PnP tenant app catalog commandlet to automatically create an app catalog and register it as your main app catalog in your tenant. And one I will talk a bit later today about the initialize PnP PowerShell authentication. It is a very long name, but hopefully you will only use it once or twice, but it will make your life hopefully a bit easier. We have some updates behind the scenes in the sort of the plumbing behind PnP PowerShell commandlets. But if you do now connect PnP online with a client ID and a certificate, now you do not have to do a special connection to the graph. So all the unified group commandlets that we have in PnP PowerShell will just automatically work. But you need to use a certificate and a client ID. And there's a lot of fixes and updates.
And more specifically, just to recap, automatically. They will
automatically, yes, indeed.
IT is completely magic. Absolutely.
It is, yeah. And a lot of fixes and little updates to documentation and commandlets and etc. So that's in this release.
Cool. Thank you, Irvin, for that one. And quick recap on the modernization tooling. I think Paolo is actually doing this one.
Yeah, so still talking about magic stuff, the modernization tooling.
It's pretty magical, that's true.
Yeah, it is.
And obviously, thanks Paul Bullock, who might be on the call as well, on contributing on this one a lot. So
yeah, definitely. In fact, in this monthly release, we have a new feature, like, for example, the capability to do term mapping while modernizing sites, which, if I'm not mistaken, has been built by Paul Bullock, as well as we have functionalities to manage the custom fields, custom columns on the pages list in order to show them in the property web part in the modernized page that we create, as well as we are working on releasing new functionalities in the upcoming releases in this first half of this year. We released also a new version of the modernization scanner together with the modernization tool, and that one includes bug fixes and some other new functionalities as well. Moreover, if there are new functionalities that you're looking for, just let us know. As well as you should keep in mind that the dev blogs are retired nowadays, so they will be soon removed, and you should migrate or modernize your blogs using the modernization tooling to avoid losing, eventually losing your content.
Yeah,
and
it would be. It would be silly. It would be an nasty situation where CEO or somebody is actually using the Delph blocks, and then the tenant administrators are not aware. And that's why the modernization scanner exists, so people can actually scan the tenant, and then you know what people are actually using, and you don't have to guess. So, anyway, that's the value prop on there. And then Victor is on the call to talk about Yo Teams as well. There's a new release. Woohoo!
Yeah, so we had a new release this morning, 2.13, which I demoed a week and a half ago, I think it was, when the preview version of it, where we can now scaffold out single sign-on tabs using the new single sign-on feature, preview feature in Microsoft Teams. Makes it easier for you to authenticate and authorize your users in the Teams tabs. This is a couple of other updates in this one as well. We switched out some of specifically the old request npm package to the Axios npm package instead. A couple of small updates and changes, and we have about 2,500 applications scaffolded over the last 3 months, which I think is cool. We're looking into the next version of both the next version of the version 2 branch, but also the version 3 branch. So first of all, in the version 2 branch, we're going to update the Fluent UI React versions to some later ones. And version 3 will contain some major refactoring of the project. And we all want your help, so please, there's a couple of issues in there. That's a good first issue that you can take a look at if you want to help out. Please test the generator, give feedback on what you want and what you need and what's not working. And of course, documentation. So looking forward to see some more contributions here. So if you want to download it and get some instructions, go to aka.ms/yoteams.
Excellent. Thank you, Victor. 2,500 is quite a lot, actually. It's good to see that people are adapting the Teams extensibility model as well.
It's not 10 billion scaffolded apps yet.
Yeah, yet. But again, it's a journey, one step at a time. Adoption grows, and then eventually, we've seen this so many times with so many projects.
Yeah, and what we're only measuring here is sort of how many applications are being generated, not how much they are used. So, of course, it's very different numbers. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Cool. Thank you, Victor, for that one. And then we'll move into the demo section of the day as long as I can actually get my slides moving. And that's the right screen. And here we go. And we'll start with Niket Jain. Sorry if my pronunciation is bad, but we're going to talk about the hover cards. And then we go to Ramesh and then Erwin in the end. So Erwin will have a short demo in the end. So, but I think Niket will jump on your screen around the latest on list.
Cool. Thanks, Vesa. Thanks for the introduction as well. Good morning, everyone. My name is Niket. I'm a program manager with Microsoft, and I work on SharePoint lists. Today, I'll be taking you 15 minutes and quickly talk about custom cards and default hover cards on lists. This is driven by formatters. And what I'll be talking today would be one on custom cards. So custom cards is basically applicable, could be applied both on column and view formatting. It's basically there to define custom callouts and can be commissioned on basis of two kinds of actions, the user-defined actions, which is click or hover. I'll be showing a demo of it quickly, but just to name it, the function name is custom card props. There are certain sub-properties which are mandatory. The start one, which you see over there, they're mandatory to be defined. And there's certain ones which are optional. So just to talk about the sub-properties, open on event, as in, do you want a custom callout to be open on an event, which is, let's say, a click or a hover? There's a directional hint over there, which is, let's say, top center, bottom center, left center, or right center. Is beak available? The beak, if in case you want a beak over there on the custom callout. And some formatter definition, of course, that what kind of value you want to show it on the custom card. Let me just quickly jump to one of the demos. So there's a list in front of me, which has certain title columns, product ID, product price, and all. What I'll try to do over there is there's a title column with the name of Microsoft HoloLens, right? On hover, I get to see a tooltip which exactly shows the title content. Let me go on the formatter window. By the way, this is also a new template. Okay, I'll leave it for now right now. So I'll go to the advanced mode over here. Let me switch back to my Visual Studio Code. And here I've got some sample JSON in front of me. What I'm doing over here is I'm saying I've defined some style, and I'm saying that on text content at the current field, I'm defined that whatever I apply on the current field, which is title column in this case, then I defined a property which is custom card props. In that, I defined 4 things. Open on event, I say on hover. Whenever I hover on title cell, I should see something. Directional hint I defined as right center. Is beak available? And a quick formatter operation, which is exactly the styling. And from where should it draw the value? So here I'm drawing the value from product price. Product price is a column name. If you notice, it's right over here, the second column. So let me do this. Let me just quickly copy and click on preview. I don't see any change right now, but once I start hovering over here, you notice there's a 3500 which I can see, which is corresponding for product price for the title column. That's what I start to get to see. If I expand the same concept, I've just shown you one example over there, one column. I can as well do it over there on column, let's say status column. Now this is a beautifully made custom card, which exactly is drawing certain dates, which is packed, shipped, in transit, from 3 columns, which are packed date column, ship date column, and in transit date column. I have some other experiences also, which is, let's say on hover, I can do some image hover icons, or on click, I can define certain cards. So, yep, I think this is the demo that I have for custom cards right now. This thing can also be applied to your view formatting. I'm talking from column formatting, but the same functionality is also available for view formatting. I'll move on to the next one, which is default hover cards. So default hover cards is a functionality. Now formatters have existed, I think, for more than 1.5, 2 years, I think. And what happens right now, the default Microsoft hover experiences, which is exactly your file hover and profile hover cards, they get overridden in case you apply a formatter. Now what we are saying is, with formatter, you can get to see both these hover experiences back to normal. So just for the sake, I'm saying the function name is default hover field, and I'll quickly show you what do I mean by this. Let me go to the list. Let me show it to you on documents. So in a doclib, I get a modified column, which is basically a people column. The default behavior right now is I hover on Megan Bowen and I see a profile card on top of it. But now let me go format this column. And let's say I'll apply a certain quick formatting, which is nothing. I'm just using the profile picture to enlarge it a little. So I apply some formatting on it. Now what's happening right now is if I hover on here, the formatter has overridden the default hover behavior. I can't see Megan Brown's profile card. And I think we've been getting these requests for very long, wherein formatters override the default experience. Now let me go and do it with the new function that I'm talking, which is my default hover field. It's just a simple function where you just need to define on which column. This is the not the screen column name. It's basically the actual column name behind the screen, which defines modified by column. So let me just quickly copy and preview this. Now nothing changed over here, but what I got after this is I'm getting the profile card back. With the same functionality, this is again, it's available over there in your tiles. I mean to say your view formatters as well, and as well as your file cards. That's what I had, guys. Thank you.
That's really, yep, that's really, really cool. There was a few questions. I think Shreya Jansh has been answering.
Yeah, Shreya is my colleague. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And making sure that we're actually addressing things. So yep, that's good. I think we are then ready to go to the next one, unless there's any. There's a lot of feedback. People really love this. Excellent, brilliant. By the way, a very nice +1 on the chat window. So really great to see this stuff moving. And also, we can probably say without actually disclosing anything extra, we are betting quite a lot of and improving the lists in the future more and more and more. So this is an area where we are constantly introducing new capabilities, so you can see similar kind of things in the future as well. Good. I think we're then ready to go to Ramesh.
Hey everyone, my name is Ramesh. I'm one of the engineering managers in SharePoint. Along with me, I have Ravi. He's also one of the managers. So I'll be talking about the managed metadata service, and Ravi will be covering the enterprise content types. So primarily, today we'll be focusing on some of the new API support that we are bringing into both these services. And if you see previously, we had support only for CSOM access to term store and very limited content type APIs that were previously available. Over the last 1 year, we've been working on building REST API access to the taxonomy term store and enterprise content types. So from a term store point of view, we'll be supporting CRUD operations on terms, term set, and term groups. We'll be initially supporting most of the properties at the term level and the term set and the term group level. We'll be introducing a new concept of relationships to support pinning and reuse of terms. And I'll be giving a quick overview of some of these in the following slides. The API model, the entities in the term store are groups which represent the term groups, sets which are the term sets, and terms themselves. And each of them have an ID for themselves to access those entities. So this is how a get on the term store would look like, where you will be listing all the term groups under the term store. It will return you the first level list of term groups. You can put some filters and do pagination also if needed on this one. It will return you the ID of the term group, the description of the term group, the label of the term group, and some additional properties like type of the term group. Is it a regular group? Is it a system term group? Or is it a site collection term group? Let me now move on to the term set access. So in a similar way, once you have the group ID, you can fetch all the term sets under that group. And at a term set level, it will return you the ID of the term set, the label of the ID, label of the term set, what are the different translations that are available at a term set level. And you can further drill down to get the list of terms under that particular term set. In a similar fashion, it will return you all the different properties of the terms. And in the interest of time, I'm skipping the post operations for most of this. I'm just listing down only the get operations. Post will also be similar for this, where you can update these properties or change, modify these properties. So under a term, you can have children, which are the terms that are created under a given term. And enumerating the children will return you all the top level children of that term. You can further drill down for each of those terms to get the descendant tree. For any term that has been either pinned or reused, you can use a /relationships operation on that one, which will enumerate where all is this particular term either pinned or reused. And we also support like posting onto the relationships to create new relationship from a given term to another term, or from a given term to a different term set. So that's mostly from the term store point of view. I'll give it to Ravi to talk about the content type APIs.
Thank you. Yeah, so content types, there haven't been any REST API so far. There was only one REST API which would just list the content type. So we have added bunch more content types to support all the CRUD operation. You can create content types on sites or at list level, remove them, update, delete them. You can also create content type columns, site columns. You can also publish and unpublish content types and set document templates on content types. So I'm just walking you through a couple of content type examples that we are going to have. For example, you can see that so one other thing that I would like to mention here is that instead of going to content type hub and creating all the new content types there, we are actually providing new UX from tenant admin, where with modern UX to create new content types. For example, you can create a new content type. The request URL would be of this type. You would be specifying the name, description, the group to which the content type needs to belong. and then the output of that would be the content type that got created with its ID. So similarly, you can create a column also, a site column also, and add it to the content type. So similarly, you can create a site column and associate it to a content type. And this will allow you to create content types at either the content type hub level or at a specific site level. So the API supports both today. So these are just a few of the APIs that we are providing shortly. So like, as you can see, you can list all the content types at the site level or at a particular list level. You can update content types at a particular site or a list level. You can delete a content type. And for all the other gets at the bottom, they also support patch and delete. You can publish the content type. You can add columns, remove columns from the content type. You can reorder columns in the content type. So these are some of the APIs that we are going to provide going forward. That's pretty much what I have.
Good. We have plenty of time, so let's not close the connection. Don't close sharing it. Let's actually go back on just recapping things. Let's go back on the taxonomy first and start from there. There's a good set of questions, and let's recap because not all of the people can see the chat. There's always problems with that one. So will it supports setting term store administrator, because currently there's no API for that one. I think Ravi answered on the chat already that the new API does support adding the store administrator in the store. Yeah. So, yep, and that was one thing. There was a recap question on the chat related. So, is this only for accessing the terms, or is it really the full CRUD operation? So CRUD meaning create, read, update, and delete. And the answer is
yes. It's a full CRUD operations on the terms. We support most of the properties on the terms that exist today, and you can update, delete, and patch these terms, term sets, and term store. Sorry, term groups.
Then there was a good question related on do we have a method to only retrieve one language of terms or terms rather than getting all of the translations at once?
Yeah, you can use the filter option that's provided to just get the single language.
Yep, and that was Ravi answered on that one as well. Now there's a good interesting discussion point. Let's actually do that right away in here, and then talk about the content type and recap some of those things as well. So this one is now in the underscore API v2.1 if we have a look on the URLs, and that's actually quite important to realize that both of these API sets are in the underscore API v2.1. Can either one of you kind of explain for the audience what does it mean comparing on the Graph API, because there was a question related on that one as well.
Yeah, so we will be following up these REST APIs with the Graph release also. That is currently work in progress. In fact, like both of them are work in progress, the REST APIs and the Graph APIs. REST APIs we plan to ship sooner, immediately followed it by the Graph support. Does that answer?
Yep, yeah, that's precisely what I was wanted to actually get from you as well. So now, just to clarify that from the audience, because obviously Microsoft internal people know how this works, but just to clarify for those who are on this call and do not understand how this works in the Graph perspective, we're not going to duplicate these APIs to Graph. That's not what it means. The Graph is actually an abstraction layer or a wrapper which behind of the scenes are actually hitting these same APIs. So it's not like we are basically doing two sets of different APIs, one's for the API v2 and then completely new set of APIs and implementing that for Graph. That's not how it works, right? Anybody who wants to comment from Microsoft side on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's keep it short. This is an interesting situation. You sound more like a Finn than I do, because Finns are super short typically. No,
that understanding is correct. That understanding is correct.
Yeah. Excellent. Just to clarify that for the audience as well, it's good to understand that how the abstraction layers actually work. And basically, the graph is an abstraction layer which then provides you the unified authentication across all of the different services and applications what we have in Microsoft 365 and other things as well. But then behind of the scenes, the specific services like SharePoint and OneDrive owns their own API, including the Graph API. So we implement that and then we expose that in the Graph, and that requires certain additional set of things to consider before it can be exposed in the Graph as well. Anything which you want to add on that one, or should we talk about slightly the content type APIs more? Can move to the content type. Thank you, by the way, Ravi, for being super active on the chat. That's highly helpful. I'm just recapping some of these things because not all of the people can see the chat always. Now, sure. There was a question related, will this work for content type hub as well? And I think, Ravi, you answered already that yes, you can create content types in a content type hub. But then there's a follow-up question there, which I'm not sure if somebody asked already because there's so many things happening. Now, in the content type hub, there's this feature where we publish the content types to the site collection. Can we do that using the new content type APIs, or is that something which we're still planning to do in the future?
We can publish the content types in the content type hub using the publish operation. Yes, that will be supported. You can publish and unpublish from the content type hub. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're basically then targeting the site collection where you're publishing the same functionalities which we have in the UI is available in the API. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be right.
Yep, excellent, excellent. And then there was I'm just double checking, that was the content type hub question. So there was a question, obviously, the obvious question, when is this out? When can we hit this API? Right now, it's probably not yet working, or is it working already in SharePoint? And can we talk about any timelines, or is it too early for that?
No, so I think we can talk about timelines. We are looking at like mid to end of May for some of these APIs to be available. Followed by the Graph APIs. So I think there was a question on the documentation also. I think like once the APIs are available, at the same time, we'll make the documentation also available for this one.
Yeah, and that will mean that within 4 weeks. So this is preview, like it was mentioned in Ramesh's intro page as well. So we're basically an introduction on what's coming, but it's super important that partners and customers do know beforehand. So what's coming as well. So you don't invest for, let's say, in a wrong API. So this is coming, and like I said, by Ramesh, plan to get out in the mid-May, and then right about the same time frame or slightly later, the Graph APIs as well. They will be out pretty much at the same time as well. So, and the documentation.
The Graph APIs will follow. They probably won't be available at mid or end May, but hopefully by end of Q2 we should have the Graph APIs as well.
Yeah. And end of Q2 means by end of June. So yeah, exactly. Yes. So it's not a massive amount of time. So 1 month later or 4 weeks. But I think it's good to get. Obviously, it would be great to have everything ready with the snap of our fingers without anybody actually working and using a tremendous amount of resources on that. But if we can, getting something out first in the V2 endpoint and then through the Graph next is completely understandable as well. And I think everybody will be super happy about this. Calendar, fiscal, it's calendar year for Rob. Rob is asking, so end of June for Graph.
End of June. Yeah.
It's good clarification. We in Microsoft, those who work with close to Microsoft, they know that we have our fiscal year is completely, or it's strange comparing to the calendar years. So that's a good question. Good. Any other things and questions which we missed? We still have a few minutes extra time because I know that Erwin is ready to go for like 10 minutes or 10-15 minutes, but we still have some Q&A time as well. If I missed something, the chat went silent immediately when I asked that. That was interesting. Good. Oh, that's a good one. Actually, Kambati, Ravi is asking, will the release of content type publishing be improved? So currently it takes actually quite a lot of time to get the content type replicated to the target site collection. That's a really good question, actually. But correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just assuming. I don't have the facts, but this is using the existing infrastructure for the replication. So we're basically still using the underlying time and job-based replication of the content types across the site collections. Is that correct?
Yes, we are currently using the existing infrastructure itself, but we do hear the pain. We know that multiple customers are facing the issue of content type sync taking a long time for these content types to reach the sites once they are published. We are seriously looking into it. And we will make, we are looking into it and trying to make sure that we could improve the performance. Yeah. We are aware of the problem and we are looking into it.
Yeah, it is a kind of it's one of those classic challenges, and it's good that we are addressing that or planning to address that in the future. Like indicated, it's not there right now, but we know the pain, and we're looking into improving that. So, and this means that as part of as an example, classic challenge being that when you create a new site collection, those content types are not immediately available in that site collection. It takes a while to get them there, and there's multiple ways of addressing and fixing that, but we need to still work on that one in the Microsoft side. But we want that, we are aware of this issue, and that's a good example of a really powerful and important feedback, which we want from the community. So you need to keep on reminding us, and we need to be honest on what are we delivering. Good. I think that's it for now. So thank you, Ravi, Ramesh, and for the synchronization and the coverage around the APIs. And I think I missed somebody's name as well. But thank you. Really good to know what's actually coming and have visibility on the things which are getting released. Again, recapping the V2 endpoint API, which is the SharePoint endpoint REST API, coming around mid-May or end of May, and then the Graph APIs, which is based on exactly the same taxonomy, which you're seeing, for example, in the screen, is coming then by end of June this year. So really cool that we're finally getting this one out. And then I can close the user voice issue. Yes, it's been open for a while.
Yes.
But thank you, Ramesh. Thank you, Rami and Ravi, for that one. And I think we can move Irvin on your screen.
Yep.
Thanks, Vesa.
Thank you for making this presentation a bit longer and taking all the input, because I was a tiny bit worried I had to talk for half an hour about a single command.
Yes, I can take the extra time if needed. So that's fine.
Yeah, I know. Okay. So my screen is on the way.
You're with a professional. It's all good.
Yeah, I noticed. Yes. So you see the CCD wonderful blue screen
see
again.
The PowerShell. Yep.
Good.
I can see that. Take it away.
So it's a single commandlet I'm going to talk about today that hopefully will make your life a bit easier. And what the commandlet will solve is actually allowing you to authenticate towards your tenant and towards the graph with an app-only registration that you create in the Azure AD. And there's many blog posts out there, and even in the PowerShell repo, there's a tutorial on how to set that up. You have to create a certificate, you have to create an entry in the Azure AD, you have to upload the certificate, you have to grant the correct permission scopes and all that stuff. And a couple of weeks ago, we were having a little meeting with the team, and we were like, can't we automate that? Yeah, actually, why wouldn't we be able to automate that? And that's effectively what this commandlet does for you. It basically does all the work for you. So let me show you how it works. I enter initialize PnP PowerShell authentication. I give the name of the application and let's say PnP rocks. Then my tenant that I specify. Then I can specify an existing path to an existing certificate. But in this case, I just want to create a new certificate. So I can specify all these parameters like common name, country, state, all these things that are applicable to certificates, but I'll just leave them blank. If I specify the out path, it will actually generate both the CR file and the PFX file. So the public and the private version of your certificate, it will create those, so you can take them with you somewhere and reuse them if you want to. But if you don't have to do that, you can also just specify the store parameter. You say, listen, I want to add that certificate to my current user store in Windows. So at this moment on, it will create the certificate and it will upload that certificate to your user store, your certificate manager in Windows, and it will create the Azure AD entry. So if I press enter right now, you see there's a pop-up behind the screen, behind the PowerShell, and I'm logging in to my tenant, and it says already certificate added to store, and now it waits 60 seconds. So while we're doing that, I'm actually showing you what's happening in AD. And if I reload this page now, and authenticate again. Takes a bit. There we go. There's my entry. So if my app, and if I click on the API permissions, you notice that we requested a couple of scopes by default: group read, write all, user read all, sites full control all, and user read all. They're app only permissions, and we require admin consent. Now you could already go here, if you know where to find and click, you can just click grant admin consent, but in this case we'll just wait a bit here because we'll actually launch that flow for you. So it should be done anytime soon if I manage to talk for 60 seconds. We've been testing a bit on how long this should take, and we thought that 60 seconds is a safe amount of seconds to wait. I tried first with 20, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. It wants me to log in. There we go. You see exactly what we just requested, and I click accept. And we're done. And the commandlet returns an Azure App AD and a certificate thumbprint. So from this moment on, because the certificate is already loaded in my certificate manager in Windows, I can do connect PnP online. URL on my tenant. I say client ID. That is this guy over here. And thumbprint. That is this value. And don't you worry, I will, everything you see that you can use towards my tenant, I will delete afterwards, although you need a certificate. There we go. And I'm connected. And from this moment on, I can just do any other commandlet. So I get PnP list. And you see, this happened before. So sometimes it's a bit tricky. You have to wait sometimes. So sometimes I do connect again. Now it doesn't want me to do it. Typical demo. Oh, wait, I'm gonna exit PowerShell and reopen PowerShell. Connect. There we go. I have a connection to PowerShell, and if I do a graph commandlet, and just for the speed of it, I say exclude site URL. There we go. This is done through a graph. We call a graph for this commandlet. So a single way of authenticating both to the graph and to SharePoint with a client ID and a certificate. Very easy to set up. You can provide your own certificate if you want to. If you don't want to, we generate the certificate for you. As you see, maybe we should have waited a bit longer than 60 seconds. I've been thinking of making that configurable. So you can define yourself like, okay, wait 2 minutes. It's usually a one-time action. You do it one time, and then from that moment on, you can use that client ID, that client, and the thumbprint. If you do not want to use the thumbprint, but you want a certificate, the Connect PnP Online commandlet also allows you to provide the PFX file as an input instead of a thumbprint. You don't have to add it to your store if that is your preference and you want to bring that certificate with you. So the initialize commandlet also allows you, as I mentioned before, to save the files actually to your file system and then take them with you.
Now, Erwin,
yeah,
sorry.
No, I said that these are 13 minutes for questions.
No, yes, exactly. A few questions and a few recaps. What is this fixing? What was wrong? What was wrong in the old model? just to recap for those who are not super familiar with the PnP PowerShell.
Well, there's nothing wrong as such, but this will make your life just a bit easier. There's no credential management. There's a central way of defining what this specific app registration can do. An administrator could set this up for you, provide you with this information. You can connect to it. The administrator can revoke that access for you in a relatively central way.
And that coming back on what Rune is asking, what permissions are needed to run successfully after that configuration? Answer is nothing, basically, just the thumbprint and ID.
Exactly. Although to run the initialize, you need, of course, the appropriate access rights to the Azure AD to be able to create the registration. But after that, no. It's the permissions that has been assigned to this app registration that is the ones that you're using. Yes, indeed. You can use this commandlet also, by the way, to grant your own. You notice that we added a couple of out of the box we added a couple of permissions here, but you can, with the initialize commandlet, provide your own scopes if you want to. For the graph, we have created a bunch out of the box in there, and for SharePoint Online, we created a bunch in there. So if you need a bit more rights, for instance, a term store readall, you can add that, and then we will register those permissions also for your app. So there's several ways of extending the creation of the registration. This is nothing you need only for PowerShell. Any code you write that uses an app registration, app-only registration, can make use of this commandlet effectively, where you simply create the Azure AD entry like this without you generating.
And then within your web application or application, you would use that certificate and that thumbprint, and voila, everything just magically works. And that's actually pretty cool. So should we say that this is truly magical, which was covered on the intro as well. Now,
there's a question here if MFA is enabled. It doesn't apply. There is no user authentication here. You're not using a username and a password.
You were forced to grant the
granting part, but that runs in the browser effectively. So the whole MFA flow will just kick in at that moment in time. We're not doing it. The UI you saw there is actually just basically think of it as a browser window navigating to Azure and the authentication endpoint of Azure.
That's a super complex way of saying yes, MFA will.
Fair enough.
You're trying to, anyway. So basically, as part of that authentication flow, when we granted the basic set of permissions. Now, somebody might obviously come back and say, well, wait, what was the basic set of permissions? So why do you need to grant that set of permissions? Can we actually repeat that? Because we have still time. So if you execute that with a
being created, these are the ones that we create. Group read write is needed to have access to unified groups, etc. User read write, well, you do a lot of stuff with users, so you want to be able to grant users access to your groups, for instance, and remove users from your groups. Sites full control. PnP PowerShell is typically used in administrative environments, controlling things in site collections. We thought that sites full control, it is a big one. We totally acknowledge that. Would be the easiest because you basically can do anything then. And because you can write to the AD, because otherwise you will not be able to use this initialize commandlet, you already have quite a lot of rights then.
But this is absolutely targeted for tenant administrators to configure once, rather than granting specific account certain set of permissions, creating an Azure AD application, which is then provided with a thumbprint and a certificate for people who actually use this on a day-to-day basis. Just recapping things, recap is always important.
The default expiration of the certificate is 10 years. That's a question from John here.
Yeah. And obviously, as an administrator, that's the whole point of having the authentication as an Azure AD-based authentication and an application-based authentication. So it's not about creating a service account, which you then share the account ID and a password with multiple people. And what if you have an MFA enabled, and then that makes things complicated, and then you, in the worst case scenario, you have a mobile phone which you give to somebody else to actually MFA in, which is insane. That's not what Microsoft wants you to do. It's much better to actually have an application-specific registration, like in this case, and the PnP Rocks is basically just an application which the PowerShell commandlet created, and then there's the default set of scopes, and you can add additional scopes here as well, and then you get the thumbprint and the certificate, which is basically matching to user ID and the password, so to say, in imaginary world. Then it's not precisely the same, but it's almost the same, and then people can use that information to come in. If needed, administrator can say that, hey, what is this? And let's get rid of these permissions. Off, they're gone, without deleting an account, without forcing a re-password, whatever, because that's not a reliable model. So, good.
Carl was asking here, why did I have to restart PowerShell?
That was the question, yeah.
Yeah, with the risk of going too technical, but we set a lot of static variables with values underneath during this PowerShell session. Restarting it actually cleared those variables of its current values and allowed me to reconnect correctly. Once the connection failed using the certificate, that variable was not cleared out correctly, and that was the reason I had to restart it.
Yeah. Can an admin reset the certificate? Well, it can, yeah.
You can remove it from the app registration, yeah.
Yes. Exactly. And then is anybody alerted when certificates is due to expire soon? I think that's some sort of a Azure setting. I don't know if there's a native Azure setting for that.
I don't know actually.
It's the classical thing. You might think that Azure has that kind of capability because this is nothing to do with SharePoint, nothing to do with PMP. It's just Azure AD application. There's an expired setting, but obviously you want to have that warning, so that your application doesn't expire or doesn't break on. Now, what's interesting around this one is I think Rodrigo said it really well, just to recap this as well. This is really useful for Azure functions. If you connect from the Azure functions to the SharePoint, as an example, using the PnP PowerShell, because now you can create the certificate application registration in Azure AD from your computer, and then you have the certificate, you have all of the needed connection information to call from the Azure functions. And then you go to the Azure function, set up the PowerShell settings for that one, and voila, everything magically works. It's super cool.
Someone asked here when this is available. This is available since last week, Friday.
Yep. Since last Friday. The monthly summary where we recap things also is delayed. I'm trying to get it out today. So many things happening. It's not like things are slowing down. It's just amazing. Good. A lot of good feedback on this one. This one with 90% of my clients. That's good. That's really good, Rodrigo, that your clients understand this level of technical details. Cool. I think that's it then for this one. So let me actually do a few closing slides. We can close a few minutes early. It is allowed. We don't have to take the full 60 minutes. So let's actually do that, because there's no point. There's always questions and discussions. We understand that, but let's actually close up as well. So just to recap, so Nick showed the SharePoint list custom formatting hover cards. Those samples are available already in the GitHub, in the SP list formatting GitHub repo. That was added in the chat as well, and it will be definitely in the blog post together with the recording, which will go live within the 24 hours. Ramesh and Ravi were talking about the taxonomy and content type REST APIs. Again, recapping, plan to go live in mid-May as a SharePoint REST APIs, and then exposed through the graph by end of June. So roughly on those timelines. These things are not promises hit on a stone. So if something is happening in the early July, we do apologize. So there's so many variables right now in the world, so there might be small delays as well. And then Erwin showed the introduction to initialize PnP PowerShell authentication, which, by the way, good point from Erwin as well. You can actually use this not only for PnP PowerShell, you can use it for any application because it's so super easy to actually register an app-only application to Azure AD with a single command. That's actually pretty mind-blowing as well. But that's already out since last Friday, so the latest version of PnP PowerShell has that PowerShell commandlet in. Did we, by the way, Erwin, update the documentation already with that one? I don't think we have. We need to. Official docs.
But it will come this week.
Okay, cool. Cool.
If someone clicks merge.
I can make that happen. So that's good. We already had the Q&A, a lot of Q&A on the chat, and we are so short on time, so let's not actually recap there too much. The recording will be available in our Microsoft 365 SharePoint Community PMP YouTube channel, AKMS M365 PMP videos within 24 hours. Follow us at Microsoft 365 Dev or M365 PMP. Next M365 Dev call is on April 13th. 7 a.m. Pacific time. Next SharePoint Framework call is within the next week at the same time as this call, where we're going to actually repeat the demos which we were planning to do a week ago. We had a pretty big team snado, so there was issues around screen sharing. Luckily, today everything worked as planned. And then the next monthly community call is on May 12th. We have a lot of community calls, a lot of things depending on your intention and your let's say interests. So have a look on these things. AKMS M365 Dev course is the full list of everything what's available. Those are direct links to download then the ICM, so the invites on them. But that's it for this one. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you for great demos, Ramesh, Ravi, Irvin, and Niket. And the recording will be out within 24 hours, like mentioned. And I think that's it for now. So thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Vesa. Thanks everyone for the feedback.
Thank you.